Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
Only 9 games to review this week, James.
We might spend most time talking about the one that didn't happen, though, I suspect.
What a disaster yesterday. For regular listeners, you'll know that James has been talking about going up to Manchester a night early because of the Burnley game and what a disaster it was, getting trains, hotels. You managed to get an impromptu meet up in there?
Yeah, listen, I went all the way to Burnley and got a hangover, basically.
I'd take a hangover over a beating, to be fair.
And several intermissions of dressing up like a snowman. I'm not sure I've seen snow like that before, mate.
Was it really that thick?
It's unbelievable, mate.
Wow.
Just how quickly it went. I
saw obviously it tipping down in the City game with West Ham, but we had nothing down here in London, like literally nothing. So it's really bizarre to see it coming down like that. And obviously the City game went ahead. It's not a million miles from City to Burnley. So I was like, well, how bad can it be that they've had to call your game off if City can go ahead?
It was much worse in Burnley than it was in Manchester. Like
Right.
I've heard loads of, they didn't turn the undersoil heating on, yada, yada, yada. Like, let me tell you how heavy this snow was. And the roads around it weren't safe. Nothing was gritted or anything. So if anyone's ever been to Burnley, which, unless you've been to Turf Moor, you probably won't have. When you come off the Burnley-Manchester Road train station, you go down a massive hill. It's quite steep. And the cars are just trying to go down there at 1 mile an hour, mate, when I was going back up to that train station. It wasn't very safe for footing and stuff. Nothing had been gritted. No one was prepared for that sort of weather. So you could say, okay, it's Burnley's fault, but then the local council hasn't gritted the roads or anything or made it safe for anyone. I think there was a theory that the majority of fans were there to try and play the game of football. But it's quite right. Every time they tried to clear the snow, it just kept settling back on the pitch and stuff. It was ridiculous. So I was in Manchester, obviously stayed in Manchester on Saturday night. Sunday went, because we discussed about it on Friday, mass wind. It's going to be really windy. I'm like, Burnley away with all this wind. Sunday morning, wake up, there's no wind. It's cold, but it'd been colder the day before, I would have said. And I was like, I texted the missus and my mum and dad, said, everything's clear, I'm getting on a train to Burnley shortly. It's about 11 o'clock in the morning. So everything's fine. You wouldn't even know that there'd been strong winds or anything. Gets on a train going to Burnley, get about halfway and like, it's definitely snow coming down. And then with each stop, it was like, it's getting heavier.
Right.
Because obviously from Manchester to Burnley, you're going north. And it was just getting worse and worse. I got to Burnley and it was chucking it with snow. And I did the video, welcome to Burnley, because it was like, fucking hell, I'm going to get drenched. But even at that stage, it never crossed my mind that the game was going to get postponed. I wished that I'd taken another video when I got back to that train station, like an hour and a half later, because it was like an inch and a half thick. Like, so it was coming down fast and hard and settling. I remember people were walking across that platform and stuff. It had already settled in the local area. It felt a little bit like someone put the key into Turf Moor at 11:30 and thought, oh shit, there's loads of snow on the pitch. Let's leave it for a bit, see what happens. It's kind of how it felt. It was like, I don't know what to do about it. But they had the undersoil heating on. They said they'd had it on since Wednesday. Undersoil heating doesn't melt snow. It stops the pitch when it's frozen to make it safe, so it's not rock hard. When there's that level of snow, I don't know what you can do.
No, because like, if it melts and turns the whole pitch into a mud pit, then that's just as bad.
If your game had kicked off at like 2:30 or 3 o'clock, you might have been in trouble as well.
Yeah, true. Because as we're getting up to half time, I was worried that we wouldn't come out for the second half.
Yeah. So I obviously went.
West Ham didn't really.
As soon
come
as
out
the
for
game,
second half, to be fair.
I was just hanging around in the mall in Burnley. I didn't have a completely wasted journey. I can tell you that I saw 2 Greggs now, and both of them were open. And I had a very nice sausage roll in one of the Greggs. I also went to the toilet in Marks and Spencer's. I also spent some time in Vodafone sorting out a bit of a phone problem. So, I mean, it's a long journey, but it wasn't completely wasted.
Yeah.
But I was just hiding in the mall waiting for information because I knew the trains back out from Burnley to Manchester was only 1 hour. And I knew it was like 1:30 for a train. So I'm waiting near the mall now, and that's about a 10-minute walk back up the hill. So as soon as it was postponed, bang, let's get out of here. Because I didn't want to be waiting around for another hour to get out when it's getting worse. And then
when the train stopped.
And, well,
Can you imagine that?
Well, there would have been no way out of there. Yeah. So, like,
Jack, Turfy Topper, where do you live? Because James might have been moving in.
Well, yeah, Jack lives in Preston. I was going to meet Jack.
Yeah.
But I was saying, look, we need to wait and whatnots and stuff. Jack would have gone back to Preston via car. My backup plan was always, if there was a problem with trains because of the wind, was to get an Uber. I wouldn't have been getting no cab out of Burnley because there was no cars going anywhere.
Yeah,
the roads were too unsafe and stuff. So it was like, right, get out of there. I obviously walked through Manchester, and I would have got back at around about the time that you were playing at the Etihad. Now, from where I was in Manchester, you could walk to the Etihad stadium. I can tell you it was battering it with snow. Most people would have seen that. I'm telling you, it was much worse in Burnley, mate.
Wow.
No doubt about it.
So, on Thursday, I tweeted after the Conference League, imagine having 3 Spurs players in your FPL team, ... And that was a piss take because obviously of what happened in the Moura game. Ended up being a completely different reason to not want to triple up on Spurs and then have a Burnley player in there as well. Tell us about your FPL week.
I'm absolutely delighted with my FPL week.
Considering,
a tiny green arrow of about an extra 10,000 places up to 322k. You could look at it and say it's disappointing from the perspective of, if them Spurs players had played and obviously if we'd have won or done well, then yeah, great, we could have done bits. But yeah, 53, I'll take that with my situation of 9 players ending up with, one of which was Tino Livramento. I had a couple of heroes for me, Diogo Jota, Jose Sarr and Ivan Toney, putting 33 points on the board between the 3 of them. Stopped it from being a meltdown, a disaster. I'm really pleased to come out. It's obviously disappointing that I've gone heavy on the treble Spurs and they haven't played. But it's out of my hands, right?
Yeah, I
guess.
Say,
it's bad FPL, man. Who's going to know that's going to happen? The irony is, I wonder, there was some rumours about strong winds really affecting Liverpool on Saturday. I wonder if people took the captaincy off Salah, put it on Kane. It's probably still ended up with Salah anyway. Because a few people on Friday saying, I'm going Kane now. I was like, I don't know about that. But yeah, I'm quite pleased.
A stretch too far to go to Kane as captain, so...
Well, I think there was a little bit of panic when there was a few people who had sort of captain Salah and vice captain Trent, and coming into this time of year and because of COVID anyway, it's not advisable to have captain and vice from the same game. But yeah, there was never any danger to the Liverpool game. I didn't think there was any danger to the Burnley game because everything in the build-up to the weekend was wind. It was never a case of snow. Do you about them poor bastards come over from Texas?
Yeah, from Dallas, I heard, for the Spurs game. Well, I mean, if you're coming all the way from Dallas, why pick Burnley away?
I don't know.
But yeah.
Trip up northwest. Harry Kane said he'll give him hospitality at some home game, hasn't he? I don't know if Harry Kane seen the tweet from the same guy 2 months ago saying that Spurs' best performance was without Kane, no coincidence. Club should have sold him and all that. But listen, it was obviously disappointing to go all that way and not have the game. But I was reflecting on it again. To be honest, I was there an hour before kickoff going, do we want to play Burnley in this? Because it's a complete leveler, isn't it?
Exactly.
It would have been an advantage to them. I don't think there's people saying, Burnley got the game called off on purpose. It's a good time to play Tottenham off the back of the defeat in Europe. Conte's obviously not got the system up and running properly yet. It would have been a good time for Burnley. Game might be in January now. I should cover that briefly. When, say, Maxwell Cornet's at the African Nations and stuff.
Yeah.
So the earliest the game can be replayed is January. I think probably game week 21. That would be if West Ham beat Tottenham in the Carabao Cup quarter-finals. If Tottenham win that, it doesn't mean it will definitely be there if you do, by the way, because that's only going to be, 3 weeks notice or something. I don't know if I'm going to the rearranged game if it's a weeknight in January, mate.
Yeah.
It might be that it's not till like March, April, depending on what Tottenham do in both the domestic cup and if Tottenham go out in Europe, it'll probably be in February, I think.
Yeah. In terms of the impact of Spurs players, I think the majority of active teams that I've seen have had at least one Spurs player, quite a few with 2, and then there's
I see a lot of teams with no Spurs.
With no Spurs.
Yeah.
I looked through my mini leagues that I'm a part of, and everybody had one.
Are they good players in your mini league?
They're active players. They're definitely making transfers on a week in, week out basis. I think the majority had at least one. There was a few people that had 2, predominantly one defensive Reguilon and then Kane. And then I think other than you, actually, I don't know many people with 3. But so, I mean, everybody got impacted a little bit with this postponement, I suppose. Sometimes it works against you. I got screwed in Sky Fantasy Football with the overhaul, if you'll remember, with the split game week when COVID first hit with Man City. So it just happens, one of those things, really. And you didn't make a transfer this week, did you?
No, rolled a transfer. Let us know if anyone lost more than 4 players due to that game. So I'd obviously lost Matt Lowton as well.
Yeah.
You know, all that thinking, I was like, defensive player for 13. Davis, yeah, didn't even turn up anyway. By the way, finally on Tottenham, the game being postponed is probably really good news for Region owners. It was made a point last week after Ryan Sessegnon was sent off on Thursday by saying, I don't think Region will play against Norwich. That shouldn't be an issue now. So I think there's certainly benefit to Tottenham in a weird way that the game's been postponed, and Conte he doesn't have to do the recovery session tomorrow, right? He can be working hard now on system and stuff like that. So nah, not the end of the world, mate. I could have gone all that way, seen a game of football and got beat, and I think I'd probably feel worse than what I did, actually. I had a good night Saturday. What a hangover that was, Jesus. Thanks to Tom Cantwell for who got the assist for buying me the worst fried chicken ever. Tasted alright at the time, but then next morning, wow.
Oh, not good.
No.
I did something, I was going to make a bum-related joke there, but I'm not going to now. I did something that you might have had on Sunday morning, James. I did something to a transfer, which in general FPL circles is regarded as sacrilege.
What did you do?
Burnt it.
You burnt a transfer.
I had 2 going into the week. I've still got 2 now. And I was in decision paralysis that meant I ended up doing nothing. Just left it. And obviously I scored 68 points this week, which could have been so much better other than Lanzini whacking it in the top corner at the end because Cancelo's points disappeared. But I had great returns from my Liverpool trio. Now, Jota, Trent and Salah this season in 13 game weeks. And I have to add that I haven't played them all 3 every week because there's a period of time I didn't have Jota and I didn't have Trent in the games that he missed out on as well. So I've not had all 3 all season, although I have had Salah. Now equate for about 42 or 43% of all my FPL points, just those 3 guys alone, which is incredible. I mean, based on general stats, they should be worth 20-25% of my points anyway because it's a third of my team, a quarter of my team, but and they should probably be worth a little bit more because they're Liverpool players. So maybe 35%. They're at 43%. But yeah, Salah, Jota and Trent have been beasts. Ivan Toney chipping in with a goal. Ben White coming off the bench for Harry Kane with a clean sheet. And Sanchez did well as well with picking up a BPS and the save point. It led to 68 points. I'm 253k now.
Very good, mate. Considering
256k. Yeah, 1.2 million 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's very, very good. Well done, mate.
But in terms of this burning a transfer, I was the one that I was really looking at was Antonio.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking.
To Ximenez. But then it didn't free me up any money. And further down the road, I wanted to beef up my defence. Like I want to get a second Chelsea defender, one of the wing backs, preferably Reece James. So Antonio to Ximenez didn't allow me to do that. So then I'm thinking, all right, fine. Ximenez got a better 2, but I want Antonio for the Brighton fixture. And yesterday in the first half, I mean, Antonio bullied Laporte especially, but Diaz a little bit as well. He seemed in decent form. So having Antonio going to the Brighton game this week, which we have to win, otherwise we could be in a bit of a rut, seemed fine. So I didn't want to make the Antonio to Ximenez move. So I tried to find a move that allowed me to upgrade one of the defenders. And the only place I could find to go was St. Maximin. Like, that gave me the 1.3 million or whatever I needed to upgrade Ben White to Reece James. So I say Maximin this week against Arsenal. It's not really the week I want to do it. And then I want to keep Antonio for Brighton. Nah, I'm not going to do it. And then the only other option was to go to Maxwell Cornet from either Rafinha or Jota. Rafinha
you obviously weren't selling Jota. No chance.
No, and I wasn't selling Rafinha because his next 2 fixtures are not too bad either. So I'm kind of like, well, who am I selling for what that up until Gameweek 16 is going to make me massively better or happier? And even going into this week now, this set of midweek fixtures, I mean, my team's lined up. Sanchez, Rudiger's got Watford, Trent, Jota and Salah, I'm not moving on. Cancelo, I'm not moving on. Palace at home for Leeds, it's all right. Leeds away for Gallagher. So I could do something with Conor Gallagher, but I'm not that precious.
Are you intending to have Antonio on your wild card in 16? So for those who don't listen regularly, me and Suj both look like we're going to be wild carding, activating on the Saturday deadline this week, isn't it? Yeah. We'll be pressing the button on Saturday and lining up for next Friday's deadline. Do you think you've been influenced here by the fact you've had Antonio all season, 7.5, he's currently 8.1. You're thinking you definitely want it when you wild card anyway, and therefore didn't want to take the hit on the value.
I wouldn't say I'm convinced in keeping Antonio for wild card, but I'm 50-50. I'm also not definitely binning him off because he's capable anytime and he still offers me good value because I only paid 7.5 for him. I think we should do well against Brighton on Wednesday. I mean, all things considered yesterday, being that you're playing against City, change of formation, snow pissing down. We did okay yesterday. I think we gave a good account of ourselves, and Antonio especially did well. And I was interested in Moyes' comments. Antonio's at his best when he's fully fit. And that sounds like a dumb comment, but he's one of those players where even if he's a little bit off the pace, it affects him massively. So you have to get him into optimum shape all the time if possible. And he felt like on Sunday, that he was in mean, aggressive, physical shape. So I'm happy to keep Antonio for a little while.
Okay, fine. I just think...
I mean, what would you do in my shoes? You can see my team.
Well, I sold Antonio weeks ago. I mean, to be honest, that was the obvious one, Suj, was to say, I would have... Looking at an Antonio week of City, Brighton and Chelsea, there must have been something. Now, admittedly...
Yeah, where that was the biggest problem.
When I get... And the ones you could have gone to, forget the moving of Reece James for the next one, right? Mm. But in the first immediate one, just moving Antonio on, the players that you probably would have been considering...
Ximenez,
Wilson, Ximenez...
Saint-Maximin. Because of the budget.
Because of the short-term gain, you wouldn't have considered King or Dennis unless you were looking to find the money.
I was looking at Dennis just to find money for 2 or 3 moves, but then I was like, well, I don't need to do it this week. I'm just not in any desperation with two game weeks until we wild card.
Did you have any money in the bank?
0.2. Nothing. Not enough to do anything with.
Personally, I would have sold Antonio, but in fairness... He's not made a blind bit of difference.
No, it hasn't to my score.
But then are you considering going Antonio to Saint-Maximin or Wilson now? Because my plan...
No, this is the problem. I might burn again.
Nah, sod that, right? You're not going to tell me you don't fancy a Callum Wilson at home to Norwich and Burnley in the same week rather than Antonio versus Brighton and Chelsea.
But then I'd probably move on. I'd move on Ivan Toney to Saint-Maximin more than I would Antonio to Wilson.
So, that's a very fair point. So, my plan always to get to this week was 2 free transfers, sell Tony and that troll and Buemo, Kinder and Bueno, whatever his name is, sell them 2 for 4.4 million midfielder and Callum Wilson. And that's almost certainly what I'll be doing today, or at least tomorrow before the Tuesday deadline. And then I take a 1-week punt on someone for game week 15. And right now, I have no clue who that is. And that's also the other reason why I'm quite happy to go Callum Wilson. Because he's on 4 yellow cards. And even if he does get booked, fine. There's my 1-week punt for the weekend.
Yeah.
It means playing a back 4 for me this weekend. This midweek, sorry. So I start Livramento at home to Leicester. Ben Davis at home to Brentford. Rudiger Cancelo. I've got Matt Lowton as cover. Josh Brownhill's maybe the 4.4 midfielder I get. Although I note he's on 4 yellows as well. Obviously, Westwood and Tarkowski will now be suspended for the midweek trip to Raul Ximenez's Wolves. If you do want to consider that again, Suj, possibly. So, chilled, ready for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and they are coming thick and fast, especially with our wildcard included as well. I've been thinking about Game Week 16. It's in the future. And the fact that you just mentioned that it's on Saturday...
We'll activate it on Saturday,
around the corner, and I'll probably activate it en route to the London Stadium for West Ham Chelsea, which is the early kickoff on Saturday. Tidy.
Next Friday on the 10th, we will do a podcast on our final drafts.
Indeed. Let's talk about some of the games from this weekend gone, and if and when we get some time, we might get to some Twitter questions. So a few more 0-0s and lower scoring games this week. Starting with Arsenal 2-0.
Gary Lineker, I watched Match of the Day on the way back on the train yesterday from Manchester to London. And Gary Lineker just completely undersold Match of the Day right from the start. He was like, it's a bit more for the purists. And then at the end, he always says something, he tries to be funny, like a play on words. He's like, at the end, he's like, if you still made it to the end, thanks. Good night, everyone. That was it. I was like, was it that bad? I didn't feel that way.
No. Arsenal routine home win 2-0 against Newcastle. Yeah.
First thing to say is, right, I missed more Premier League games this weekend than I missed all of last season. So I'm relying on data and other stuff a little bit this week and just a bit of common sense
quick
stuff.
Fire, James, because the deadline is literally here again and we've got plenty of games to watch Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Cut the notes, change the system for Newcastle, obviously. It's more
Three
of
at the back.
No, we went 4-4-2. Basically, Richie played as a left back. Richie's positioning on the second goal. Wow, love that kind of shit. Really bad. They're going to keep shipping goals, which I said to you on this pod last week has to be a concern. I also think that partnership of Willock-Shelvey will get overrun when they play good teams, like Arsenal are a good team on their day. Callum Wilson, I'm still going to go and buy this week. There's no doubt in my mind in terms of still going Wilson over St. Maximin because he's of no interest to me if he's going to end up that wide in the game. And it's not to say he definitely will in the next two fixtures. But it's definitely Wilson for me for this short-term punt. I think those thinking longer term, yes, you've got to be cautious of the 4 yellow cards. But for me, like I said, even if he gets booked this midweek, fine. I'm just going to fire into someone else for the weekend in game week 15. For Arsenal, Saka went off injured. It's worth noting we don't know the extent of that as yet. The more interesting one is probably, I think the majority of us thought this would change after the defeat at Liverpool, is the fact that Nuno Tavro has played again. And by all accounts, played very well. Certainly Micah Richards did some analysis of him that was interesting. He's 4.3. Now, by no means suggesting go and buy, but if he is going to lock down this place eventually, he looks like he could be a very threatening asset, actually. Obviously, both fullbacks returned assists. I would not go and buy Tavares. If you are still sitting there with Kieran Tierney, like I was a couple of weeks ago, and I'm glad in hindsight that I did sell him, rather than, I think he'll be back in for Newcastle and do I want to keep him? I'm glad he's gone. I think that's an easy move on. Smith Rowe would still be the very interesting one to buy at 6 million. And when I got out for the night out with the lads in Manchester, they were all telling me how bad this Neil Maupay miss was. It's worse than Aubameyang's, James. Worse than Aubameyang's. No, it weren't. Have you seen Aubameyang's miss?
I mean,
it looked like an illusion.
Yeah, but I guess his foot was quite high though, right? It just bounced off funny. I don't know. Yeah, he should be scoring.
No,
I'm trying to help the guy out here.
Suj, I seen you kickball. You would have scored, mate. You'd have scored, no doubt about it. You would have just waited for it to come down a bit more.
Yeah, just let it hit you and go in.
Which obviously that could have been Smith Rowe had the original effort saved, I think, and he before that he'd laid on the effort, so he could have had a kind of a goal and assist in the same movement as well. I think Smith Rowe's still the one that would interest most. People like you got Ben White. It's reasonable. We've got some okay-ish fixtures coming up. United Thursday night be interesting. I'm at Tottenham, Suj, so you're booked in to watch that one. You can tell us all about it on Friday.
Will do. Crystal Palace 1, Aston Villa 2. I like what I'm seeing with Villa. Obviously, winning games makes a big difference, and they've had a massive jump up the table to 11th now, which means you feel they're safe. I just think Steven Gerrard is going to be a really good manager, and so I'd like to get involved a little bit with Aston Villa, but I don't really know where I'd go right now. They're on a watch list. The whole team is on a watch list as opposed to any individual players, and I'll worry about it in maybe wild card. I'll sneak one in, but maybe straight after, because their run from 17 onwards to 21 is actually pretty decent. Norwich, Burnley, all right, Chelsea, but then Leeds, Brentford.
All right, Chelsea.
In the middle. That's
Leeds is
one.
away as well.
Yeah, but I do think there's some good value in and amongst Villa assets as well. If I was buying long term, if you told me I had to buy a striker at 7.5 million, and it had to stay there for 10 weeks, I'd go Ollie Watkins over Callum Wilson any day of the week.
don't think there've been any Villa players in my wild card, mate.
No.
The thing is, as well, they've just had a bit of rotation where, like, Young's come into the team and stuff. Apparently, Steven Gerrard was protecting Danny Ings. So, look, when Ings is back fit, we kind of got the impression from the Brighton game it would mean that Watkins ends up in a wider position. I wanted to have a second look at John McGinn's price because I think that stands out. He's a player we looked at particularly for Sky Fantasy quite a lot last season. The sort of player in this system I think could thrive a little bit.
The same price as Conor Gallagher.
We ain't paying 5.8 for him.
Same
Certainly
price
not
as
with them
Smith-Rowe.
fixtures.
Yeah.
Defensively, okay, they've nearly kept back-to-back clean sheets, but you wouldn't go there. Emi Martinez is very close to a price drop for those who still have, and it feels expensive to be having him at the moment of 5.5. Certainly what they have done in the last two games, and Villa have been notorious for this over the last, well, actually since they got promoted. They haven't conceded many shots in the last two games. And when I listen to Gerrard speak, there does seem a real emphasis in terms of being a little bit more tighter as a unit. They're not quite as open or suspect to the counter-attack, I think. So if you have Martinez, fine, I think you can keep, although there's a couple of dodgy fixtures still to come for them. But I still don't see where you'd be investing in them, Suj. And actually...
Well, up top.
I don't know. I wouldn't want to go Watkins and then he ends up back wide. I'd have to see it to say, yeah, okay, I'm happy and comfortable with that. There are better and cheaper options at the moment than Ollie
Even
Watkins,
Ivan
in my
Toney
opinion.
sticking around.
And similar might apply to Palace because a lot of the questioning I've had over the last week has been which Palace defender. 'Cause you've had some attacking returns recently from Gehi and Anderson.
Yeah.
And it's solid. You know they're back for every week with Mitchell and Ward at the fullback positions. I know a few people have gone for Gator. If you're thinking of buying a Palace player, I'd completely scrap that. Quite simply because of Joachim Anderson's hamstring injury. Now, hamstring injury means I guess he could miss the rest of this month, which now, with this condensed schedule, means you're possibly missing 7 game weeks or so. There was certainly, from what I've seen of the game, some hesitant moments in the Tompkins and Gay partnership. Now, Tompkins is not a bad player. He's a player you'll know very well. But I think Anderson and Gay had struck up a really strong relationship that made you want to have a look at them. I wouldn't bother now unless it is literally... They've got a good long-term run, which they do. And I want to keep a budget option defensively on the bench. Otherwise, wouldn't bother. Obviously, if you still want to buy Gallagher, it's very reasonable. It's 6.1 million now. I was interested to note that Wilfried Zaha was substituted when they were losing. That's not something I could ever imagine that Crystal Palace would ever do.
No.
But they did. It was a substitute appearance for Ebe Eze, back involved with the squad now. And he may have an impact on Gallagher's positioning in forthcoming game weeks. Palace would be back into a no-buy zone, I think, for me at the moment, while we reassess what happens defensively and what the possible impact of Eze will be.
Liverpool 4, Southampton 0. I mean, at half-time, Southampton must be sitting there thinking, let's not get another slapping here, because Liverpool were all over them, just wave after wave of attack, good possession. I think Liverpool, this was probably a dream game situation for them. I don't think Southampton offered too much at all, really, and any time Liverpool wanted to turn it on, they could. They're just, from an FPL point of view for me, like I said, they're the gift that keeps giving every week. Like between the three of them, in Salah, Robertson, Jota, the minimum number of points they give me in any given week is like 20, 25. It's mad. And there's numerous weeks where it's over 30 points between the three of them. And even when, like, okay, Trent's only a 2-pointer and Jota's only a 2-pointer, Salah as captain will go and bang in like a 13-pointer and doubled up to 26, and I'm still over 30 points. They're just the gift that keeps giving Liverpool. They're just so good from an FPL point of view. And I think it helps that, really, the choice of players, like unlike City where you could pick one of 10, is very narrow. Like you either go Salah, or you don't go Mane, let's be honest, between the two of them. Defensively, it's Trent. And then Jota's just good value. I mean, Liverpool, I'm just so happy with from an FPL point of view at the moment.
4 players this weekend got an XG of more than 1. Diogo Jota was the highest, 1.36. Josh King obviously had a penalty at Leicester, 1.24. Gundogan scored from half a yard against you, 1.09. There was another player in this Liverpool-Southampton fixture who had an XG of exactly 1.
Chathams?
No, you're close.
Broja? No. It was
I've been told it's Brea, by the way. Brea.
Adam Armstrong.
Adam Armstrong. Southampton missed 3 big chances.
Yeah.
And he was the main culprit.
This is where stats...
no. Let me just... Because there's one more XG that I want to give you from the weekend. And that's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang of 0.76. Nah, fuck off, man. That one chance was 0.98. It was shit.
Yeah. This is where stats... I don't want to say misleading, but need a bit more context.
And he missed big chances, Suj.
Yeah.
Both teams had 3 big chances in the game. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, fine. I think the quality of the player getting the chance has a big impact on it. Right? You give Salah and Adam Armstrong the same big chance. It's not the same thing, is it?
Well, we know that. It's just fairly obvious and routine, isn't it? But I think it's interesting. Most people I've seen have been very critical of Hasenhüttl and the team he picked. So he started with a back three. Linkau apparently played really well at Chelsea in their Carabao Cup game there a few weeks ago. Played at the heart of the back three. And actually, interestingly, when they changed system at halftime, it was Bednarek who went off rather than Linkau. Although they may have deemed at that stage 3-0 down, this will be good experience for him. Let's keep him on the pitch. But Romain Peral played left wing back. Livramento played right wing back, and he created one of them big chances for Armstrong, by the way, mate.
He also got 0 points this week.
All 3. That'll be the 4 goals conceded. Hasenhüttl also played all 3 forwards. I couldn't believe when I saw the team. I went, Armstrong, Adams, and Breuer. He's playing all 3 of them. You're joking.
I mean, Breuer outright. Even at 5 million, I thought, okay, look, if he's going to play all 3 up top at 5 million as a bench player, I'd rather him than a Dennis or whatever, maybe. But yeah, I don't think it's going to stick.
No, I just think it's fascinating that, and it is true, and I kind of agree. It's a little bit suicidal to go to Liverpool and set up like that. But he picked a team to try and win the game, and I find that quite admirable that they went for it. Now, listen, he said himself, they got it wrong. They changed it at half-time. And it's Adams that was hooked at half-time. Now, again, that doesn't mean we're going to get Breuer and Adam Armstrong next. But it's worth saying, Suj, if you are considering an Antonio replacement, I'll tell you what, the Southampton guys might be quite interested. They're 2 this week, Leicester at home and Brighton at home. They're not the worst.
Just need to check something in the league table, which I'm pretty sure I saw in the stats. Yes, I am correct.
That makes a change.
Other than Norwich, lowest goals scored this season in the league?
Southampton.
Tied with?
I suppose. It's got to be, yeah.
I just noticed that. Tied with 11 goals all season.
Hold on, we're game short.
You are. They're not scoring enough goals, mate, to want me to...
No, and to be honest with you, they wouldn't be a consideration for me. But you're talking about opening up the money.
Yeah.
But if Breuer was going to play again, 5 million for the 2 weeks, that would possibly be the way to go, rather than... Dennis obviously looks amazing at the moment, but he's City and Chelsea for Dennis this week, whereas you've got 2 potential home games for Breuer, and Leicester defensively, I've seen again yesterday, it's not great, right?
No.
So you could consider it. I mean, it'd be off radar for me. I think one of my interesting calls on Wildcard, and probably talk about it a bit, is actually whether Livramento stays for me or not. I'd bought at 4.2, he's now 4.6. Do I look at it and go, I'm going to nick that money now, because there might be a fairly obvious 4.0 at a team that's better defensively that might be very interesting. We'll talk about him in a bit.
Yeah. If we're talking about the same player.
In terms of Liverpool, just finally to add, the midfield 3 playing together, they've not done it often. Henderson, Fabinho and Thiago. For me, that's their strongest 3. I look at that team, and bar Firmino, you could make the argument Konate and Matip. That's them at their strongest.
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like we've not been there with Liverpool for 18 months or so.
There's always one or two where they've... And it's always in key areas. Like central midfield is such a key area.
I think the stat was Thiago's only played with Fabinho and Henderson, both of them, like 3 times before or something. That's crazy.
Thiago's hardly played this season.
Did you see his goal against Porto last week?
Yeah.
In Champions League?
No, I only saw the weekend goal.
You not seen it against Porto?
No.
Oh, get hold of that, mate.
He whacked it. I knew it was outside the area, wasn't it?
No, I wouldn't even say whacked it. He caressed it and cut across it on the volley. You know when you were a kid and you used to throw a stone across the sea?
Yeah,
get it to skim.
Yeah.
He did that.
Nice.
Class.
Yeah, very good player. I mean, he's cheap as well. I don't think his FPL interest at 5.3.
Oh, no.
If he can keep scoring from outside the box, maybe.
No. You wouldn't waste the Liverpool spot on a
exactly
player like that anyway.
No. Norwich 0, Wolves 0. You thought that Norwich might nick it. I thought Wolves would win comfortably, and I don't think Wolves were good. And I'm judging this off Bradley Parker's tweets. He just.
Are you two still talking after your criticism at 8-0 last week?
I think so. I haven't had him telling me that we're not friends for any particular reason. But I did see he put out Podence didn't play after he did okay against us. And
to be fair,
Trincao came
COVID
back
is...
Has he got COVID?
Yeah, it was COVID.
Oh, okay, fine. Well,
Podence,
that's a bit unfortunate. Trincao played and didn't do particularly well from what Bradley was describing.
And Traore wasn't great when he came on either.
No. I just think a meh performance. But with Norwich... I mean, forget about it. I'm not looking from an FPL point of view, but consistency of not losing games, so an unbeaten run, it does help build a little bit of momentum and confidence. And now that's 3 games in a row without defeat.
Pookie 5.8, Newcastle and Tottenham this week.
Nope.
Okay, fine. We won't go there then.
We talked about low scoring teams. I mean, he scored 7 goals all season, mate.
It's worth saying, obviously, Brandon Williams has played 90 minutes over the last 3, and he is 3.9. Just saying, just putting it out there. He's not a player you're ever going to want to start, but guess what? Yeah. I wish he was the prick that was sitting on my bench this week, right? Because I'd have been quite happy to take some of them points, thank you. Wolves. They'd have been near the bottom of the list if I said you lowest XG this weekend. 0.37. Norwich should have won this game. I think it does tell us something about Wolves is still very much a work in progress under Bruno Lage, and they've very much done very well, in my opinion. Well, I think they've had the 3rd best record since about Gameweek 3 or something like that. Doing really well, but there is something in that. What I said to you this time last week, it wouldn't surprise me if they went to Norwich and got nothing, and they should have got nothing. They didn't play well. Now, it could be that Norwich are on a kind of upward trajectory, a bit of a bounce with a new manager and stuff, and they need to target to win games like this. Any home game from probably bar the big 3 at the moment, they really should be trying to win the game, even if it's like United, Tottenham, West Ham, whomever. I think Wolves should be disappointed with that, though.
Of course.
Because they've got the better quality.
Of course.
And the fixtures are obviously going to turn for them, which you have to be aware of. So it's Burnley at home this midweek. Then the dog's dinner comes for Wolves, and it's get rid of assets as far as I'm concerned, which would include even, fine, you could say, yeah, Ximenez will take over. I think the fixtures are so bad for a little bit that I'd look to switch that to something personally after Wednesday. So I understand why you didn't want to go there for the 2 weeks, because then you're walking into Liverpool as the final one as well.
Yeah, it was the upside on Ximenez versus Antonio, when I think Antonio could do okay against Brighton this week, and then Ximenez I've got for Liverpool just didn't make me jump out of my chair. Like, I didn't think the increase in points was even worth it if there was going to be one. So
the fixtures for Wolves are rough right up to game week 22. I mean, it's a long enough period. We're talking the whole of December, right? And New Year's Day fixtures. They play Southampton at home in 22. Follows a trip to Old Trafford. That said, despite what I said this time last week about I wouldn't be surprised they got turned over at Norwich, I wouldn't be surprised they do Liverpool at the weekend.
So Brighton 0, Leeds 0 was an interesting game. Brighton did to Leeds what Leeds do to a lot of other teams in terms of dominated possession, and quite a lot, 57% against 43, and we've seen Leeds outpossess some really good possession teams in the past. And on top of that, 20 shots, admittedly so many off target for Brighton, but they completed more passes and had more of the ball and had more chances and more shots and more big chances and all of that kind of stuff. If as a Brighton fan, you're probably coming away from this thinking, we should have won, right?
I get the disappointment. Give your head a wobble, though, if you were giving them a bow. I can't believe that.
But booing them off the pitch?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's stupid.
see Potter after the game?
Come to London Stadium and boo him, or you like, no problem. I might even have a spare ticket for one of you Brighton fans if you want to come and boo your own team.
He wanted to swing at people, I think. Then he was properly vexed in his interview after the game, which I understand. I'm not sure some of the kind of subtle hints he was dropping were necessarily wise, because that's going to piss off some of the fan base. But I think the fan base pissed him off. You know it is, Suj. It's like everyone, as soon as you start winning games regularly, it becomes like a self-entitlement. I deserve this kind of... The reality is, on a different day, Brighton win that game 3-0, and everyone goes, thanks very much, on to Wednesday, and that's the end of it. Because and I only caught the last half hour of this and was talking to people at the time in the pub, and the game seemed very scatty, and it was quite even what I saw of the game. Like Tyler Roberts had some good chances for Leeds late in the game. Sanchez made a couple of good saves. But the message beforehand and what I've seen since was very much, like in the first hour or so, Brighton should have been like away in the distance and had this game won. Morpay's miss and others. And I guess there's a frustration with Brighton that they kind of had this tag all last year of, being kind of the reverse XG busters, if you will, and stuff, and underperforming their stats. But I tell you what, I'd rather watch your team than what I've watched the last couple of years. So, I don't understand that reaction at all.
Look, we as a club in the last 18 months, 2 years, have had the results to back up the performances, but it's always the performances that I hang on to more, because that's the foundations. The results, you can play well and still lose a game of football, but as long as you're playing well, and I think that's the realisation of trust in the process and enjoy the process rather than constantly looking for the results. But I can understand Brighton's frustration a little bit, because how long can you keep drawing games you should have won? Eventually, there has to be that step up to turn draws into defeats. So what's the missing ingredient that's going to turn Brighton from a team that play well, dominate games, and walk away with draws to a team that play well, dominate games, and actually get 3 points? Because they'll feel like they're a striker or a goal scorer, perhaps, away from challenging for Europe.
Yeah, I think they missed out the boat on a few in pre-season, like your Tammy Abrahams and stuff. Would have been good buys for them. I'm surprised they didn't go and fix that problem. But I think they will at some point over the next 12 months or so.
Patience.
Brighton doing fine. Leeds is more concerning, actually.
I'm almost want to jump off the Rafinha train until Bamford comes back. I think a large part of it's that focal striker and how important Bamford is to the way they play and starts the press and everything.
This is a perfect one for us, isn't it? Palace at home, Brentford at home this week is absolutely fine. And Rafinha didn't play well at the weekend. But two really good home fixtures coming up. There's definitely pressure on them to get positive results as well because of what comes afterwards. You and I, Suj, are not going to have Rafinha on wildcard. Because we're going to wildcard into Chelsea away, Man City away, Arsenal at home, Liverpool away.
Yeah, I'm not going to have Rafinha.
No, well, there won't be any Leeds player in our wild card.
He's higher on my selling list than Antonio is.
Now, they then have a good turn of run from game week 20, so part of my strategy on my wild card, and I really haven't thought about this yet in terms of whom, but my strategy would be to look at it and go, I want someone to sit there as a placeholder for Rafinha for 4 weeks, and then I want to go and get him back. Mm-hmm. And it's not that Rafinha can't go and return in those games, but the reality is his first 4 fixtures from when we wildcard, including the 3 teams that are going to challenge for the title, all away from home as well. So, no, he won't be in there. And I think those who've got, you should be considering what you want to do. Those thinking longer term, I think you could hold him through those fixtures. I don't think he would become like an essential sell or anything. But I think most people will look at those fixtures come 16 and go, I need to move him on. But I wouldn't move him on yet with them next 2 in mind. I'd have no interest in anything else happening with Leeds. Other than Gelhardt might still be the best 4.5 million forward sitting around if that's how I decide to set up in a couple of weeks. But with Rodrigo and Rafinha back obviously available, Bamford is nearing a return as well, although I think probably game week 17 or so for Bamford. But again, it's only going to restrict Gelhardt's opportunities even more. One person who will remain nameless asked me about Daniel James at the meet-up on Saturday night. I just proceeded to spend about 30 seconds laughing. He's a midfielder playing OOP at the moment at 6 million, but please don't go there.
Nah. Let's go to Sunday, shall we? 4 games on Sunday to talk about. Brentford 1, Everton 0. I think if we're going by the words of our correspondents, and we talked about Bradley earlier, Sean's not a happy bunny. He feels like that they could be sleepwalking into a relegation battle. I do think that's a bit harsh when if DCL and that can get firing, they'll be able to claw themselves out of it. But yeah, you saw him before the game.
Me and Sean spent a lot of time Saturday night talking about John Stones.
Okay.
And it was possibly the funniest 15 minutes I've had in a very, very long time. Good morning, Sean, or good afternoon. I hope you're well, buddy. I hope your hangover was as bad as mine. They're fucking shit at the moment, so I don't really know how to paint this any differently.
Yeah, and I mean, if you, I didn't watch this because I had eyes on City, West Ham, but on stats again, they had more possession, they completed more passes, they had more shots, and it's the crosses, because Rafa talked about it, right? But
you're spot on to mention crosses.
You can't just whack the ball in the box and hope that something happens.
No, but we had literally identified this game week 1, unapologetic in terms of get the ball into the wide areas and get it on.
I think Solomon Rondon getting a yellow card for arguing is basically Everton, isn't it? In a nutshell at the moment. They need DCL back big time.
Yeah, I would say this midweek for the Merseyside derby is probably pretty unlikely. Arsenal next Monday night. The spacing of the game will probably help a little bit. And they need him back desperately. But then you've got pressure on a player who's obviously not going to be up to match fitness.
No, it's true. But look, Richarlison had his 1 game ban. And I think more important than not more important, but as important was Doucouré getting back on the pitch.
I think
Doucouré
back's obviously a big plus.
DCL, Richarlison. Suddenly you're talking about a slightly different Everton team, which is why I don't think they'll sleepwalk into a relegation battle. They'll be fine, but they're not good at the moment.
The problem is the next 4 of Liverpool at home, which is obviously
1 of Liverpool at home is going to be difficult.
Arsenal at home, Palace away, Chelsea away. Like if this continues, you start panicking. They haven't got anyone who can grab the game and dominate it. Doucouré is probably the closest in terms of his driving run, his box to box attitude, which lifts the team. But like Richarlison, as much as we can rate him as a player, he's not going to go and dominate a football match for you. He might win you a football match. He's not going to dominate it for you. I'm concerned for them. The thing is, I think it's summed up, and yes, Richarlison's suspension had an impact on our thinking, but you and I were literally in zero doubt that they would get beat at Brentford. It wasn't even a debate.
It took a penalty in the end to beat them. Ivan Toney, his penalty record speaks for itself, so and no surprise there that he put it away.
The feedback I've had off this as well is that Brentford were there for the taking. Like Brentford kind of got a little bit anxious at 1-0 and stuff and actually didn't play that well themselves. So, I mean, it speaks volumes of Everton at the moment. I mean, I look at that team and I think that is so bland. It's so bland. And yes, they're missing their 2 best attacking players. But I think even when they're back, I still look at it and go, that's going to be a bit bland. And obviously, it didn't help as well. Gray wasn't at 100%, was obviously only a substitute. But then what was our hopes and expectations for Damari Gray in the summer anyway? It was like a failure at Leicester. They'd got him on the very cheap. He'd obviously had a good run in FPL. You got any Everton assets still in your team? I don't know. Just it's got to go. It's got to go. It's got to go.
You're bidding both Toney and Mbeumo.
Yeah,
Tony's 2 and 2
before playing the mighty Tottenham.
What's your thinking behind Ivan Toney moving on? Short-term punt.
Yeah, it's not a judgment on Toney. It's I want Wilson for them 2 Newcastle fixtures.
He's only scored 53 points in 13 games now, Ivan Toney. So it's not like setting the
So he's going to get near 150 points at the current rate.
Well, that's the thing. He's the 5th highest scoring forward, which isn't bad.
It's completely reasonable.
Yeah, and that's why I think he's going to be a tick along for the entire season, and he'll go through periods that he had before the last 2, 4, 5 games without a goal, but then he'll pop up 2, 3 in a row, and off we go. But yeah, Tony's sticking around for me. If I'm not so interested in Mbeumo, I think he'll end up being one of the most frustrating FPL players ever.
Yeah, it feels like he's been troll of the year. I think for many people who had gone and gambled, because everything in terms of the eye, the stats, all kind of pointed towards him being a brilliant OOP prospect, and he just week after week, it's not happening. This is the week. He's got the mighty Tottenham on Thursday. It's an inevitability. I actually think, on a more serious, his place is under threat. with Wissa now back available, who came on for Canos, who went off injured towards the end of the game. So it wouldn't even be guaranteed that Mbeumo keeps place in the team, actually. Yeah. It might shift system as well now Vissa's back fit. But yeah, I'm going to sell them both. I'm well aware that Tony can obviously do damage to me, but I've been set for ages on targeting Wilson for these 2 Newcastle games, and I'm still going to go ahead and do that.
Yeah. Leicester 4, Watford 2. Just saw the goal alerts coming through, and it felt a bit like a basketball match to a certain degree. I don't know to what extent Leicester deserved the win 4-2, or Watford still had their chances to
yes, they did, to
score as well. I mean, 17 shots for Watford, 18 shots for Leicester. It tells a story of quite a number of big opportunities. I mean, Leicester had 4 big chances, scored 3 of them. Watford also had 4 big chances, only scored 2 of them.
We're both in the top 4 for the weekend for XG, these 2 teams.
Yeah, decent. I think it's very likely that I'll come out a wild card with one or Dennis and Josh King.
I might have both.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
It's possible.
Josh King's getting the minutes. Dennis is getting the points, even when he's not getting the minutes.
I think Dennis is getting the points now as well.
Dennis is getting the points.
It's worth saying.
Dennis is getting the minutes.
Dennis went off injured towards the end of that game yesterday as well. So, and again, I think unless it's like your case where you really want to open the money up, I wouldn't bother right now with possibly injured Man City and Chelsea, or rather Chelsea and Man City in the next 2 fixtures. I wouldn't bother personally, Suj. And therefore I wouldn't be in a rush to Josh King either. And they have a nice little run from when we wildcarded in 16. I think one of them is going to probably be a certainty for me. Do I want to pay the extra? It'll probably come down to budget.
Yeah.
Do I want the penalty taker of Josh King? Yeah, quite possibly I do. Your phone's ringing, Suj. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a Planet FPL podcast without your phone ringing, would it? Are you capable of turning it off, sir?
Maybe. I'll put it on Do Not Disturb.
Yes, I'm interested in Watford players. Leicester players, I probably won't be, I don't think. Jamie Vardy doing what Jamie Vardy does when he gets chances is score goals. Defensively, still frail. Maddison's one of them who's obviously had a haul at the weekend. And every time he does, he makes your head turn. Because
I'm not going back there.
No, because you know the creativity prospect is within him. And I really liked his interview afterwards where he spoke about being honest about him suffering a bit of a loss of confidence and stuff, and he feels like he has it back. But yeah, like you, I'm not going back. I'm not going now. Leicester defence wouldn't go anywhere near at the moment. It's still not right. That's why I kind of part mentioned the Southampton attackers as interesting for this week. They're just not in a good place defensively. The weird, bad decision, like Wilfred and Diddy on the penalty. What's he doing? I don't think he's had a good season than Diddy, actually.
No.
So look, they got the win, but this easily could have been 4-2 to Watford. What's more important, can we talk about this high-vis ball that's not very fucking high-vis?
This yellow Nike ball.
Can we talk about it?
Seems a bit like... I've only seen pictures. I've never held one, but it seems like there's a lot of contours on it. It seems like not that it's round, not very round.
It's about 140 quid, you know that? Wow. If you want to buy the official version.
Stupid.
Yeah, for football.
Yeah.
Remember the old plastic flyaways you used to get as a kid for 99p?
99p. That's mad.
You used to have fun with them.
You don't think it's very high-vis?
Well, I mean, you watched all of City West Ham yesterday.
Yeah.
But
you couldn't see much.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same for parts of, obviously, the Leicester and Watford game as well. It looked like it was a fun game of football. I think Watford attacking players is the real takeaway from this. King and Dennis, one, maybe even both. It might even be that's the logical, is to say, I'll have the 6 million and I'll have Dennis as a rotational option. Although his returns seem to be so big when he does not a player you're going to want to leave on the bench very often.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure I want 2 Watford attacking players. But it's a sort of one on wild card, maybe go, sorry, I'll hit it for a couple of weeks and get both and then decide which one to move on a few weeks later. It's a possibility for me, yes. Leicester players have got no real interest at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised they get turned over at Southampton in midweek. This doesn't solve all of their problems. Watford, by the way, still have them defensively as well. Very much so. What was Troost-Ekong doing for that first goal?
Mad. Let's talk about Man City 2, West Ham 1 in the snow. Change of system and personnel for West Ham. Jared Bowen dropping out with Arthur Masuaku coming back in.
Was that a change of system?
A change of formation. And I mean, Masuaku's, it's different, right? It's a 4-4-1-1.
I'd say it's a change of thinking. I don't know if it's a change of system.
It's definitely not a 4-2-3-1 as you would traditionally, because Masuaku's more defensive minded. Well, he's more defensive minded than Bowen.
You see,
Well,
it's debatable, isn't it?
His mind is debatable sometimes. So it was definitely a system designed to for City as opposed to a change in system that's going to be more permanent.
We spoke about this as a possibility for this whole week for you.
Exactly, and I think now we need to be wary about what happens, because obviously Aaron Creswell went off after 60 minutes with an injury which I haven't got the full prognosis on. So whether or not, if Creswell is to drop out,
I can tell you the prognosis because I've seen the incident. It fucking hurt.
Ouch! But will he be fit again for this week, or do you think he's out for a while?
Oh, it's impossible to say, isn't
Exactly.
it? I would have thought that's impact. So
the thing with that is,
if he's done bone damage there, he'd be out for ages, mate.
Yeah, let's see what the prognosis is. I mean, Masuaku dropping in as left back and sticking with the 4-2-3-1 is highly likely, and I think Bowen coming back into the team.
Because I mean, he didn't
for Brighton for sure.
But
Chelsea,
he didn't just put Masuaku
he
back.
Soufal
he brought Soufal on and played him at left back,
which was surprising. But
Agreed.
I don't think that's the way moving forward. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I just think West Ham did well in the game, all things considered. City always do have a lot of possession, and City are without their best players in Foden, Grealish, De Bruyne. So anytime you come across a City side without those players, you think you've got to be in with a little bit of a chance. But I think we did well without threatening. Antonio definitely fucking had Laporte in his pocket. He was his strength physically. Even Diaz, he gave a tough time to. And I was surprised to see Benrahma play ahead of Bowen. I thought Bowen would play at Benrahma, but he did okay as well. Lanzini, when he came on, was really pushing to get into the team. But this is not all about West Ham. I mean, City are very, very good at patience. The thing with City that I've noticed over all the years, the thing I would always describe with them is so patient. They're just happy to keep plugging away, wait for the right opportunity, and bang, before you know it, they'll isolate you one-on-one like Gundo did, and bang, you're 1-0 down, half-time, and you're chasing the game, and it becomes very, very difficult. And were it not for a worldie in the 94th minute, we'd all be counting our Cancelo points, right? So I'm still sticking with just one City defender. I'm not buying any midfielders or forwards. I don't know which one to go for, and whether or not any of these will keep their place when Foden, De Bruyne, Grealish are fit again as well. So just not interested in that.
Phil Foden feels like he's going to be an FPL headache for the next decade, mate.
Yeah. Put him in the same box as, who are we talking about? Mbomo. But I'm not interested. But they did okay, and I was happy for the performance from West Ham, because I don't think you come away losing at City. You'd expect to lose, but we gave them a bit of a game, especially in the first half. I mean, conditions were difficult, and we have to take that same level of performance into Brighton this week. Let's see. But Antonio stays definitely for the Brighton game. I'll consider it for the Chelsea game as a move on. And City, I'm just sticking with Cancelo for now. Not really looking to go anywhere else.
The right team won, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you have 70+% possession, have most of the chances. But it's what you do with the other 20-25%. A lot of teams roll over against City, and that's it. And we didn't. We kept trying. We kept trying to break out and hit them on the counter. And we worked hard, and we put in a good performance. It just wasn't good enough for a team like City. Simple. But City did deserve to win. No doubt about it.
There's a couple of
players, way more shots, way more chances, way more big chances, way more possession, way more everything.
I think the most interesting City attacking option for me at the moment is Gundogan.
Ahead of Bernardo?
For me, yeah. Yeah. 7.2. I think there is more, and again, we've seen this without De Bruyne. There is more emphasis in terms of him being in the sort of position. Bernardo doesn't score that goal, mate.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's not that Bernardo can't be scoring more goals than Gundogan. Bernardo Silva doesn't score that goal for me. I know someone's going to point in, there was a tap-in at Burnley very recently, but we've seen Gundogan score that goal so many times over, haven't we?
Yep.
He's the one that would interest me, because we've got a great run of fixtures, and let's be honest, let's just not forget that it's Manchester City and the fixtures don't matter so much anyway. It's worth saying the majority of the Super League 6, if you will, have good fixtures coming up. Tottenham's very short term, and then there's a worse period. But actually, for the rest of the sides challenging at that kind of top end of the table, they've all got good fixtures, including yourselves, Suj. Following the Brighton and Chelsea fixtures, it kind of swings back for you as well. Antonio, I'll have a think, because I think he'll either come in for wild card for me, or I'll look at someone for 2 weeks as a holder for him. Jared Bowen, I'm interested in. That doesn't bother me that he's missed this particular game.
Yeah.
I think he's the best.
Makes him more attractive, if anything. To be honest,
he's the best attacking midfield option from now. And Ben Johnson is obviously the 4.0 player that I want to reference.
And he had a good game as well. Difficult game.
You
good game.
You were concerned after Wolves. Now you're not concerned.
I was talking about it in a chat group, a WhatsApp chat group with some West Ham mates of mine, that we're just glad that he's being picked on merit right now. He's playing well enough, doesn't deserve to lose the jersey, offers a bit of attacking threat and is defending very well. That clearance off the line as well, we got Fabianski out of trouble. He doesn't deserve to get dropped off his performances, and Moyes isn't dropping him off his performances. Simple as that. We've got a very, very good right-back cover in Soufal for him. So it's not like he's not got any competition for his place. He's got good competition for his place. So, Ben Johnson still sticks around he's benched most weeks, but as 4 million playing defender, he's decent.
As I said, I think Livramento versus Johnson, and I'm not saying it could be both. If I decide on wildcard to just go say Trent, James, Cancelo, for example, it could be both. I might look at that and then just think, oh, that's a stronger bench than it would have been. He's got to be right in thoughts, I think, Ben Johnson, for those who've got the luxury to be able to make those moves. I don't feel like it's one for the majority of players you're ever really looking at. I think it might be one to come back to, sort of like game week 18 or something, maybe. But when you've ever really got the luxury to do it, and by that point he might be 4.2 or something, right?
Yeah, it's true.
One attacking return from him at the moment and his price will fly. People just go and buy him.
Yeah, attacking return and clean sheet, double-digit return on Wednesday. Thank you very much, Ben Johnson. Yes, please. I'll take that.
Ben Johnson, I'm right looking at. I'm hoping he's still 4.0 come Saturday.
Let's keep our fingers crossed for you. Chelsea won, Manchester United won.
Oh, one final thing on City. Laporte played.
But also, Pep was fucking fuming at Laporte in the first half because he was getting bullied.
It's Antonio, isn't it?
Well, after they scored the goal, Pep was celebrating, but then straight away called Laporte over and was giving him all sorts of shit. Like, just stop letting Antonio turn you and bully you. Yes, he played. He also got a bit of an earful from Pep in the first half as well. So
now he's suspended for this Wednesday now, Laporte. So it's another opportunity for John Stones. I saw Johnny at the meet-up, FPL Pringo, on Saturday night, and he was adamant that he thought, going forward, it was probably going to be Stones. So there was a little bit of surprise again seeing Laporte in that team. Personally, I think he wants that kind of balance of the left footer to compensate for the fact Cancelo plays on the outside of him, and he's generally a right-footed player. And that's why I think Laporte's largely been getting the nod. But you're saying he struggled a bit yesterday. John Stones will obviously play against Watford in midweek. It might change again. It's one to keep an eye on, because I think the thing is with, say, Laporte and Stones, if you knew either of them were nailed, I know it's a kind of no-frills selection, but 5.5 and 5.3 respectively for City, if you've got a nailed defender, has always kind of got to be near the back of your mind, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We haven't got the answer, so...
You're right. I just think I'm going to end up with 3 Chelsea defenders in James, Alonso and Rudiger, and then Trent and Cancelo. I don't have space for another City defender. But he is the best part of over $500,000 cheaper than James, or a similar price to Alonso. So, yeah, one to consider. And Alonso did play in the Chelsea 1, Manchester United 1 draw. Chelsea will obviously feel like they should have won it. They had plenty of chances to go ahead in the first half, but didn't take them. Ronaldo dropped is obviously the big headline story that
I don't think it's that big a deal.
I don't think so either, but you know what the media is like. Everyone loves a story and a debate and an argument.
I just really don't think it's that big a deal. They've got kind of Sunday, Sunday schedule coming up. It's inevitable that at his age, and we saw this from kind of the Everton game a number of weeks back, it's inevitable that he's going to have the odd rest. So they wanted to play a certain tactical way against Chelsea, which perhaps probably doesn't benefit him. We kind of split forwards up front, allowing Bruno to come off. They did press much better as a team, I thought, United, what I saw of the game. And yeah, of course doesn't. But I'd still believe it's a nonsense that Man United can't press with Cristiano Ronaldo in the team and suddenly think, oh, he's not going to be in the team and all that kind of. He will be.
Yeah, Ralph will be.
He will be
made public later today, and off they go.
He will be.
If I said to you, Chelsea had 24 shots and only scored once from a penalty, who would you say was up front?
I'd say Timo Werner. It's literally, before you even asked the question, I was going to say Timo Werner played up front.
I mean, he had 6 shots of those 24, 2 off target, 4 blocked. I mean,
it's irrelevant. Lukaku's back fit now, and I imagine Lukaku will
come straight in.
If he doesn't play at Watford on Wednesday, he'll certainly, I would have thought, would play against you next weekend, just in time.
Come on, Zuma.
To be fair, I wonder if they might wait for the West Ham game, because obviously you've got kind of Wednesday night and then Saturday lunchtime, and he's obviously been out for a little while. Yeah. Do you want to...
Romelu, if you're listening, pin yourself on
With
Craig
that
Dawson
in mind, I think, like I've seen FPL Harry, our friend Tips, have said he doesn't think Reece James will start on Wednesday night. I know that's the thing of some other Chelsea players just looking at it and going, it's Man United, West Ham, and there's a Watford game in the middle. This is the one where certain players are going to get rotated, and that would be as no surprise. So if you've been through it and you've been captaining people like Reece James lately, I love it, but I probably wouldn't do it this particular Wednesday if I were you. There will be rotation for a lot of teams this week, I imagine, particularly those like Chelsea with this kind of short turnaround. Like it doesn't surprise me Bowen didn't play yesterday. Are you expecting someone like Jared Bowen, who in the past has been a 70-minute man, to play 90 minutes in 3 consecutive games inside 6 days, basically? No, not going to happen. United players are very much on my radar with this, obviously, wild card and fixture swings coming up. Genuinely, I know he didn't play yesterday, but Luke Shaw's down to, 5.1. In fact, he hasn't played again. I don't know how people are still selling him, God knows, but he's still in about 15% of dead teams, I think, or so. If he's 5.0, I'm going to find that difficult to overlook on wild card. Even if they're shit, they're going to improve. They've got an amazing run of fixtures forever. It's not that expensive to think, I'd have to play him every week anyway, even if it does look bad. You can always drop it down to something cheaper. Ronaldo, I probably want in on that wild card, I imagine, as an alternative captaincy option. I still think it's a sensible idea to have one other expensive player to go with Mo Salah, particularly with the African nations looming and stuff. And players like Sancho, Rashford, one of them might just become a punt that goes in on that wild card, I think, quite possibly.
Yep.
But none of them particularly appeal at the moment. They generally have got away with that yesterday. They've got away with it. They did things defensively which were kind of Mourinho-esque in terms of midfielders going back into zones between centre-backs and full-backs, which I'd highlighted for the advanced tiers was something that people like McTominay were going to have to do last week. And they did do it. And defensively they were better, but you're quite right. Chelsea's had a shitload of shots, right? Particularly in the first half, and should have still won this game.
Indeed. And that's a wrap of the games. We obviously don't have a Burnley Spurs game to talk about. We tried to mini preview the week's fixtures that are up ahead. What content we got this week, James? And then I'm going to weasel out some Twitter questions.
Before we do,
ask me.
A couple of quick points I want to go through. So some suspensions for this week. Obviously mentioned Laporte, Tarkov.
This week being this midweek.
This midweek set of fixtures.
Tuesday, Wednesday,
5
Thursdays.
yellow cards. Richie and Lascelles both out for Newcastle against Norwich's Timu Pukki. Suspensions. As I said, Ashley Westwood, Ruben Neves will miss Wolves' game against Burnley. Those are the players on 5. Of players on 4 yellow cards, just some notable ones for you. We didn't talk about Shane Duffy, was finally left out by Brighton.
Yeah, he was.
Joel Veltman's on 4. Joel Ward of Crystal Palace, if you think they're looking there. Cancelo is on 4 yellow cards. Luke Shaw is also one that's on 4 yellow cards. Josh Brownhill is one I've been looking at. Bruno Fernandes is on 4 yellow card. Matthias Norman, who's a budget midfielder, a lot have been looking at. He went off injured for the first half for Norwich the other day. He's on 4 yellow cards. Callum Wilson, we mentioned, is on 4 yellow cards as well. West Ham's Declan Rice is on 4 yellow cards. Not necessarily relevant for FPL, but certainly relevant if he misses the Chelsea game.
Yes, indeed. I think he will have one on. Trying to stay clean on Wednesday.
And there's one more point I want to make to you, Suj, before we do content. And that is to ask you the question that we haven't asked for a while. Who are you going to captain this week?
You don't need to ask me that.
Why not?
Mo Salah.
Are you sure?
Why? Because you're going to tell me he's due a rest.
He is due a rest.
Doesn't matter. Do you remember when he had a rest last season against Palace?
So, Wednesday, December the 5th, 2018, Liverpool played away to Burnley. Mo Salah was a substitute, played the last 25 minutes, got an assist. Wednesday, December the 4th, 2019, it was an unused substitute in a 5-2 victory against Everton. Wednesday, December the 16th, 2020, which because of the tighter Champions League was when the midweek December fixtures were last year.
Mm-hmm. That's the Palace game I'm referencing.
He played 90 minutes against Tottenham.
Oh, okay.
But missed Crystal Palace away 3 days later.
He didn't miss it, did he?
Well,
he came on, mate.
He came on and went mental, but he didn't start.
Okay, so he's due a rest, but Everton being Everton, they are right now, even if he got 20 minutes.
But Everton are so shit right now, sorry, Toffees, that they don't need to play Mo Salah at Everton. This is all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
If I was looking at it, if I was Jurgen Klopp and went, I want to rest Mo Salah in Everton or Wolves games, I'd rest him at Everton.
Agreed with you on that.
They don't need to play him at Everton to beat them at the moment. So I think there is a little bit of danger. Now, one really important point before everyone shits themselves and goes, oh, because I'm probably still captain Salah, by the way, because I'm a bottle job. If he plays at Everton, I might take the chance with Harry on Sunday against Norwich rather than Salah. Because I just think his returns were irrelevant. Whether he gets 20 points, 1 point, basically doesn't matter at the moment. And I just don't need the headache of, if I'm wrong, losing 400,000 places again, right? If he goes off in the Merseyside derby. They are obviously through in the Champions League. They go to Milan next midweek. That's the sensible time to rest him, you would think. They've also got a Carabao Cup tie coming up against Leicester the midweek afterwards. He almost certainly won't start that game. So it could be that after this midweek, Salah will get the next 2 midweeks off. But then, a little bit like last year, where Reds fans got really on my case, where I was kind of having a screaming match with a few about why are you picking strong players when you're already through. Remember Jota got injured in Midtjylland? Why did these guys play against Porto last week?
Because the £2.5 million that Liverpool get for winning every Champions League game.
Yeah, well, it's not as important as Liverpool winning the league.
Agreed.
And you can't afford slip-ups.
Yeah.
My general opinion is, and all I'm doing is just making you aware of a little trend of something that's happened a couple of years ago. I think that Mo Salah will start at Everton. I don't think it's worth the risk of going against. And I think he'll probably start at Wolves as well. But if team sheets drop and he's not in them in one of these next 2 games, I will not be surprised.
No, I'll take that rough with the smooth.
My view on it would be if Salah gets rested at Wolves and they get beat at Wolves, and then Salah rocks up playing at AC Milan in the Champions League when they're about 8 points clear of top. What is that? If that's the difference to Liverpool winning the league, I don't get that.
Yeah. So if I look at my squad on paper, James, and I'm not captaining Salah, which I am, the next best fixture is got to be Kane at home to Brentford.
Yeah.
And then you'd say Son, if you own Son as well. Kane's ownership, as it stands, only 11%. And Son's only
his live ownership's quite a bit more.
Yeah, but only
more like
20 for Son.
25, 30, I think.
72.5% ownership for Salah. So if Kane does okay at 11, even if he goes up to 15%,
you're still doing well.
I'm still doing okay. If Salah does well and I don't captain him at 72.5% ownership, and I think half people will, it's up shit creek. So I have to play those percentages.
We've also said, I might take him on this weekend. I'm not going to this midweek, but if he starts at Everton and Harry looks all right Thursday night,
yeah, I'm with you on that.
I might chance that against Norwich at the weekend.
Yeah.
I might chance it.
Agreed.
And then at least know I'm raging into my wild card if I'm wrong. Right?
The most satisfying reselling him. Yeah.
I think you'll get a few little wobble over the next couple of weeks and go elsewhere, and possibly for the Spurs boys. That I can't say, Spurs are going to, and I've obviously played yesterday, so it hasn't helped from the eye test point of view. I think the break will do good. And I do expect both Kane and Son to do well in these next 2 home fixtures. If you're going in very short term, I will not put you off buying them. If you really feel you want to captain Kane or Son this midweek, or particularly at the weekend, I'm not going to put you off. I mean, Brentford played with Charlie Goode yesterday, and he's not but apparently he was yesterday, but then they were playing Everton. So, yeah, look, I expect the Tottenham players to have a good week.
Yeah. So, what is the content
this week?
Let's do it.
So, people's poll. We're going to have a bit of fun tomorrow because it's obviously deadline. I'll be doing deadline stream 5 o'clock UK. I mean, it's 6 o'clock UK deadline, I want to say.
Yeah, 7:30 kickoffs
people's
because
poll.
of this, Amazon.
People's
shit.
poll. Vote is out now. One of three options. We're going to pick a best team of one of three options. We are either going to pick a combined current Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester City team, which kind of leads into a bit of a title race debate potentially as well. We're also going to look at the idea of picking a best ever Premier League team from non-European players. And also, there's going to be an option to pick a best ever Premier League team of players who have never played for a member of the so-called Big Six.
Okay.
Which one you choose is up to you. Unfortunately, with this short turnaround, I don't have the time to get all political and look into financial stuff.
Yeah.
Wednesday, Sky Fantasy Football Podcast. Thursday, Clash of Correspondents, Ricky Ximenez and Tom Med previewing Tottenham Brentford, which is obviously on Thursday night and will obviously be after your deadline. We'll preview the game that night and also Brentford's trip to Leeds and Tottenham playing Norwich at the weekend. And then Friday, Season 5, Episode 21, review all the midweek football.
Indeed. So let's have a look at some of the questions that we've had in on Twitter.
You've got to sell Patreon this week, mate.
Well, I'll sell it after the Twitter questions.
Oh, right,
no, I'll just sell it now. Come on. If you aren't one of the 500 people in our
because they'll turn off after the questions.
Then do head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL for the simple reason that if you do it today before the 1st of December, which is only 2 days away, you'll get November refunded.
I want a big turkey at Christmas.
Yeah, you'll get November refunded.
Refunding as well?
For 2 days.
Yeah, cool.
And every tier that you'll notice, we have a £3, £8 and a £14 GBP tier, gets upgraded for the whole of December. So if you join on the basic £3 tier, you will get all of the additional podcasts that we do for patrons only for the month of December, plus access to the Slack channel and a whole heap of other stuff as well. If you join at the intermediate tier at £8, you'll get all of the advanced content and videos that James produces on a weekly basis as well. And the advanced tiers are getting even more stuff than they would regularly get. It's a great opportunity to try it out, see if you like some of the additional content, see if you like interacting with some of the community. Just asking fans of various clubs might help you make some FPL decisions, that kind of thing. But it's a whole heap of fun as well. So patreon.com/Planet FPL. Sign up now and you'll get the rest of this month free, which is only 2 days. And you also get a free upgrade to the next tier for the whole of December.
It starts with a banging end of week schedule. So Wednesday will be Tottenham, which is going to include my right story of checking into a hotel that apparently wasn't booked into this weekend.
Nice.
I'll save that one back for you guys. I'm going to do our James stream for the patrons on Thursday. And we'll obviously have our Game Week 15 preview Friday morning as well.
Indeed. So, yeah, well worth a look. Got a few questions in on Twitter, James. We've answered a lot of them. There's a lot of talk about City midfielders, Gundo versus, is Foden to Gundo worth it? Is Bernardo Silva or Gundo the one to go to? I think the talk at the moment is Gundo.
For me, it's Gundo, which means you should buy Bernardo.
Amber Redmond wants to know, are you allergic to anything other than obviously snow-based postponements? I'm not actually.
My wife.
I'm not allergic to anything, like actually officially allergic to anything.
No, not that I'm aware of actually.
Yeah,
it's never honest. I need a wife, like I said.
And we've got a question coming in from Abstrusol, who says, regarding Chelsea's tactics, was it a bad idea to start Werner, Ziyech and Hudson-Odoi as a front three?
No, they just didn't put a ball in the net.
Well, all three are fighting for their spot, so wouldn't pass to each other if there was a chance to get
where that probably falls a little bit short is you don't kind of have they're all a little bit diminutive and like they can all dribble with the ball and stuff, right? Werner's kind of more of an in behind runner and stuff, but I guess they obviously thought that in terms of the quick movement of them would probably be too much for Bailly and Lindelof. I don't think it was a particularly bad strategy.
We have FPL Quinner. What game have you seen take place in the worst conditions?
Do you know what the thing was as well yesterday? It wasn't that cold. When I got to Manchester on Saturday afternoon or early Saturday evening, it was freezing. It wasn't that cold yesterday. I just had spells of dressing up like a snowman, getting dry, and then dressing up like a snowman again. The worst ever conditions. Remember we played at Wembley? That game against Rochdale a couple of years ago.
Rain.
Snow as well.
Bad.
All afternoon was like, surely this is going to get called off because it was bad. For those who've been to Wembley, to take shelter from the snow, I had to go to the back tier, the back row of the middle tier, and hide underneath the big screen to take cover from the snow at Wembley. It was mad. That's freezing cold. That's the coldest I've ever been to, other than a game in Prague in 2008, UEFA Cup game was. But I was drunk that night, so it was a little bit easier to deal with. It's probably that Rochdale game. That got silly. Like a heat map on the football pitch.
Mad. Matt Tams, last question of the show, James. At least you managed to get home, get to the pub on Saturday night. But have you or Suj ever made a more pointless trip?
Oh, it wasn't pointless. I mean, I've gone to loads of Spurs away games and we've lost like 2-3-0 and barely had a shot, which feels completely pointless. We didn't get beat this weekend. Admittedly, I know there's another weekend where Tottenham didn't have a shot on target. I know it's like something else you can smack me with. Now I've had many more pointless journeys. Many more.
Yeah. I've made plenty of stupid
I'd have been much more annoyed, obviously, if I went up Sunday morning. I mean, going up the Saturday nights ended up costing me a little mini fortune. But if I'd have gone up Sunday morning, struggled to get there, got there, and then that had happened, I'd have been vexed. But I was just like, right, fuck it, I've got a hangover, I'm going home then.
I once went to Manchester to buy a car. Trains are obviously very expensive.
Seems like a long way for a car.
It was a good price, decent car, the one I wanted. So it was not in Manchester, it was outside Manchester. I'm trying to remember where. It might have been Preston. From memory. So I decided that I wanted to go and make the trip as cheap as possible and then drive the car back down to London. All good. I got the bus instead of getting the coach. But I decided, rather than wasting time, let's get the night bus. So I got on the coach at about 10 o'clock in Victoria, where the coach station is. You know it. And
I've never used that service. I'm telling you now, mate.
It stopped at plenty of places along the way. And I pulled into wherever in Manchester at like 5 in the morning.
He'd already sold the car.
So, no, it's fine. I'd already told the guy, I'm coming at dickhead o'clock. You better be awake, mate. So 5 o'clock. I waited in the train station for an hour and a half for the trains to start running because they don't run at that time. So I had an hour and a half to just sitting in the train station. Went and bought the car. By 7 a.m, I was on my way back to London. I made it back down to London by lunchtime. But I'd done it overnight rather than wasting the day to go up there and bring it back. Yeah,
Why are you so tight? I know you've got cash.
Nah, but it's not even, to be honest with you, with the train that time, it wasn't even the cost, it was the availability. Because sometimes on weekends you get real dickhead train services running and you can't go direct, so you have to go like 3 different trains.
Tell me about it.
I'm like, fucking just sleep on the bus and just turn up in the morning, pick up the car, drive back and be done with it.
Grim.
I only kept that car for about 3 months as well. My wife was screwing, livid.
I woke up on a night bus once in Palmer's Green Station. I had no idea where I was. It was just some guy mopping the floor. I thought I'd been abducted. Anyway, next question.
Indeed. That's it. That's all the 2 questions for this week's show. Quick turnaround because it is midweek games. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned. On Friday, we'll be back with another full podcast reviewing the midweek games. And that will be that. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Good luck this game week. Cue music, please, man, child.